Hello students, today in this video we are going to study the chapter Discovering Truth. The saga continues from our book Hornbill. Written by A.R. Williams, this chapter is about the last heir of the powerful Pharaoh dynasty, Tutankhamun, who died when he was a teenager after ruling for 9 years. He died in a mysterious way. This chapter throws light over all the possible mysteries, the curse, where his tomb lies, his life, and ultimately death. Egyptians believe that there is life after death, and that is the reason why the pharaohs were buried with wealth and everyday use items. Tutankhamun, also known as Tut, was a teenager when he died. He was the last successor of his powerful Pharaoh dynasty, which ruled Egypt and its empire for centuries. He was laid on rest, heavily loaded with gold. His tomb was discovered in 1922, which made the world raise a question about what had happened to him and whether he had been murdered. After almost 80 years, his body was about to undergo a CT scan, which would give new information and clues about his life and death. His face would be recreated with the help of a procedure called forensic reconstruction. A fast, strange, and unnatural wind was blowing as the king Tut's body was taken from his grave, called Valleys of the Kings, an ancient Egyptian cemetery. The location of the Valley of the Kings is given in the image. You can see the image in your textbook. The map is given. Dark clouds moved quickly across the desert all day long, and later they covered the stars. On January 5th, 2005, at 6 p.m., King Tut's mummy, which is the world's most famous mummy, was placed in the CT scanner to investigate the mystery behind his death, which had occurred more than 3,300 years ago. All afternoon, tourists visited the 26 feet deep underground rock cut tomb to pay respect to the king. Many people stuffed into the small tomb and looked in admiration at the murals on the walls of the chamber and took a look at the face of Tut that had been painted with gold. While visitors read the guidebooks in a hushed tone, some stood silently wondering about his untimely death in his teen years. They might also be wondering if the curse of the Pharaoh, which leads to the descent of misfortune upon the person who disturbs him, is true. As Zahi Hawass, Secretary General of Egypt, leaned over the body to have a look, he said that the mummy was in a very bad condition because of what the British archaeologist Howard Carter did to it in the 1920s. He discovered King Tut's tomb in 1922 after a long search. The valuable treasures of Tut had been explored earlier too, but surprisingly, they were complete. The treasure found at Tut's grave is the richest till date and has come to be known as the Pharaoh's legend. It has artifacts in gold which are eternally beautiful and as good as new. Such artifacts still get attention. Tut was buried with things of daily use like a razor made of bronze, games, linens, undergarments, and boxes of food and wine which he could use in the next life. Carter took a few months to record the treasures found in Tut's grave. Then he began investigating his three coffins, which were nested one in another. In the first coffin, he found a piece of cloth with garlands of willow, olive leaves, wild celery, lotus petal, and cornflowers, which suggested that he had been buried in the month of March or April. When he reached the third coffin, he was in trouble. The body had hardened due to the resins which had cemented the body, and it had stuck to the bottom of the coffin, which was made of gold. Carter wondered what to do next because no amount of force could separate the two. Carter tried to loosen the resins by keeping the body in the hot sun. He kept the mummy in 149 Fahrenheit heat of several hours, but still it remained stuck. He reported that a chisel would be used to cut down the mummy from the limbs and the trunk so that Tut's body could be taken out of the coffin. According to Carter, he had no choice other than to cut the mummy. He believed that if he had not done that, thieves would have removed the gold from the tomb and would have looted it. During Tut's time, the royal people were very wealthy and they had a belief that after death they could take the wealth along with them. For his life after death, he was given precious collars, necklaces, and decorative patterns, bracelets, rings, amulets, ceremonial aprons, sandals, sheaths for fingers and toes, and now an iconic inner coffin and a mask. His men removed his head and every joint of his body. After they finished, they resembled the remains in a wooden box with padding filled with a layer of sand to conceal the damage. It was his new resting place. In the past few decades, archaeology has changed as it now focuses on the details of life and the mystery of death. Earlier, it was about focusing on the treasure. Now it uses more advanced medical technologies and tools for research. In 1968, an anatomy professor X-rayed King Tut's mummy and revealed that the front limbs and the breastbone were missing. Now, with the advancement of technology, CT scan or computed tomography can give a virtual image of the whole body. With the help of this technology, King Tut's body would be scanned to find answers to two questions: how he died and how old was he at the time of his death. His death was a shock to the royals also, as he was the last person of his family, and his funeral indicated the diminishment of his dynasty. However, what happened after his death is still not clear. Tut's father or grandfather, Amenhotep III, was a very powerful pharaoh who ruled over a period of 40 years. His son, Amenhotep IV, succeeded him and began the strangest period in the history of Egypt. He promoted the worship of Aten, the sun disk. He changed his name to Akhenaten, meaning servant of the Athens. He also shifted the religious capital from Thebes to the new city of Akhenaten, called Amrana. Further, he attacked Amun, a god, smashed his images, and closed his temples. Ray Johnson, director of the University of Chicago, said it must have been a bad time for the empire, as the family who ruled for centuries came to an end and Akhenaten moved in an odd direction. Another mysterious ruler, Smenkhare, succeeded him and died soon. Next, Tutankhamun, also known as Tut, sat on the throne and ruled for 9 years. He worshipped god Amun in the old ways, however, he died mysteriously. Tut is one of the mummies in Egypt, whereas until now, with the help of Egyptian Mummy Project, which started in 2003, almost 600 mummies have been recorded so far. King Tut's mummy was the first one to be scanned by CT. Under the next phase of scanning, the mummies will with the machine donated by the National Geographic Society and Siemens. The CT scan machine scanned the body by creating 1700 digital X-rays in cross sections. Tut's head was scanned in 0.62 millimeter slices to record the tiny details. The resulting image was very strange. A team of radiology, forensic, and anatomy experts started examining the secret of the grave that had been protected by flying goddesses for a long time. During the night, workmen climbed up on the ramp and the flight of stairs to carry the body from the tomb into the spinning sand outside. They rose the body onto a hydraulic lift, then into a trailer where the scanner was kept. After 20 minutes, two men ran towards the office nearby to bring two fans. The scanner was not working as the sand had entered a cooler fan. The guard joked that it was because of the curse of the Paro because they had removed his body. Once the fan worked, the procedure was finished. The data was checked in case of any losses, and then technicians returned the body to the pallbearers who carried him back to his tomb. In less than 3 hours, he was resting at the same place where the priests had laid him many years ago. In the trailer, the technician showed a beautiful image of Tooth on a computer screen. He showed the gray head, which was scattered in pixels, and he spun it around. Next, the vertebrae, hand, rib cage, and transection of his skull were shown. As the work was done, the pressure was finally off from the shoulder of Zahi Hawass. While sitting in his chair, he smiled and said that he was relieved that nothing went wrong. He had not slept the previous night, and now, as the work was done, he would go and sleep. By the time they left the trailer, the wind had stopped and the winter air was like death itself. Just above the tomb, the Orion constellation shone in the sky, watching over the boy king. So, here we come to the end of this chapter. Thank you for listening.